Welcome back to the 5 Fantasy Football Show with me and Liv. Liv, how was your game week?
Yeah, well, every time I think I have a good game week, everyone always seems to get better than me. Although I did get 74 points, which I think is a respectable score given the average was under 60. The Trossard one was a little bit, not lucky, but I played Haaland, obviously, and assuming he wasn't going to play, Trossard was first. On my bench, Salah captaincy sort of paid off a little bit, but I've got 2 free transfers this week.
Have you?
So jealous. I think I'm definitely doing 2, and the players I'm eyeing up are Kevin De Bruyne and maybe Almiron as well. Maybe even a -4 if I've got the money to do Emerson to Dalot to have a stronger back 5.
Right.
So there, maybe taking a -4 might be the way to go this week.
Yeah. I can't believe you still got Salah in your team over KDB. Yeah. I think that's a crime to the FPL gods. I have to say, I had very similar to you, to be honest with you. 77 points this week. Trippier is just a beast, isn't it? Oh. And I was slightly unlucky with Callum Wilson.
You put that off?
I had Callum Wilson as my captain right up until like 10:58. And then I was like, oh my God, Saka's got Forest. I've just got to give it to Saka. Yeah. Gave it to Saka. Off injured after 30 minutes.
You are the king of bottling FPL decisions.
I know, so bad.
Maybe just go with your gut next time, because your gut was obviously telling you Wilson. But I think the fixture got to you. However, you were very unlucky with Saka, because had he not have come off injured,
he would have picked up serious points.
He would have, genuinely could have been close to Wilson in terms of points. He looked that threatening in the opening, literally 15 minutes. So I think you were unlucky. But when you're looking at your team now, is there any decisions or transfers you're looking to make?
Absolutely, yeah. I really want to find a way of getting KDB into the side. So there are about 3 transfers I'm eyeing up. Zaha being one of them, Andy Robertson being another.
I'm surprised you still have Andy Robertson.
Yeah, me too. I bought him in as a replacement for Reece James, and it's not really worked out, although he did pick up points for me this week. But either way, there are some big fixtures involving some of those players this weekend. So let's move straight on to Chelsea versus Arsenal.
Yes, Chelsea versus Arsenal is a 12 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. Slightly nervous for this game, I'm not going to lie, especially if Chelsea starts this game how they have the last few games. I think the interesting thing here is we're probably not going to be seeing Raheem Sterling and someone else at wing-back.
Finally.
I mean, that's going based off watching Chelsea against Dynamo Zagreb in the Champions League, where Chelsea played more of a 4-3-3 rather than a 3 at the back.
Even that you went 1-0 down in.
Yeah, I know. We always go 1-0 down when we play 3 and then change to a 4 and we always look much better. So I do expect Chelsea to start with a 4 against Arsenal. Raheem Sterling, again, at his price, 9.7. I don't imagine, he's only in 5.1% of teams. But if you do have him, he's going to be playing hopefully further forward. Mason Mount is by far the best Chelsea asset. He's going to start every important game. He was man of the match again last night in that game. But I think, like we say, with Chelsea assets, it's probably best to just stay away now, because we've got Arsenal and then we've got Newcastle away are our 2 Premier League fixtures before the World Cup break.
Yeah, and you've got City in the middle of them.
And we've got City away in the League Cup next Wednesday.
I think as well, given your record against Arsenal recently at the Bridge, which is not good, and the fact that Arsenal are just killing everything in front of them, I think if you've got particularly any Chelsea defenders with Chilwell, Reece James and Kepa all out, bin them now. Get them gone.
Honestly,
seriously.
What is it with injuries? We literally last season we lost Ben Chilwell and Reece James.
Everybody has injuries.
Yeah, but they're when you play a 3 at the back, your wing backs are very important, almost the most important. So we played 3 at the back last season, lost our 2 best players.
It's crazy.
This season we're then going, let's go to a 4, and then we lose Reece James and Ben Chilwell again. So it's a little bit frustrating.
It's almost as if you should have signed a £62 million left back. Oh wait, you did. You did sign a £62 million left back.
But it's the right. Who did Chelsea play on the right hand side? Cesar Azpilicueta isn't quite it. But also, you mentioned Kepa. A lot of people bought him in. 4.4. I know he's risen to 4.5 now.
We were even talking about it.
But now Edouard Mendy is back in goal, and I think he'll be in goal until the World Cup, because Kepa seems to be injured. However, moving on to Arsenal, because their assets are looking way more appealing than any Chelsea assets right now.
Yeah.
And the good news is that Bukayo Saka was back in full training ahead of the Chelsea game. I don't expect him to play in the Europa League. So if you've got Saka, you'd be holding, wouldn't you? I suppose you've got Saka, you're going to be holding.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely be holding. I do think as well, there is still conversations to be had about Gabriel Jesus, who is fabulous at football. We all love him, and he is like so good at building up and creating with the team link up. But
the most frustrating FPL player to own.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
It's got to be up there.
I put him back in a couple of weeks ago, but that game against Forest, he got 2 assists, he missed 2 sitters. I know keeper made a couple of... He could have had 3 goals and 3 assists.
Yeah, very, very
He should have got on the score sheet. And that's so frustrating about Gabriel Jesus. There's also 1 yellow card away from a ban. Obviously, you shouldn't be thinking too much about that. But I have absolutely no doubt that he's probably going to start scoring against Chelsea. So if you've got him, he genuinely... I would probably say the most frustrating player to own.
Yeah, very, very annoying. I do still think Granit Xhaka is a really good option.
100%.
We've been talking about him for weeks now. Pops up in really good areas, scoring goals in both Europe and the Premier League. So I think he is a consideration. But get Martinelli in your team, potentially get Bukayo Saka, and then have a think about Gabriel Jesus because he is quite expensive at 8. There are other striking options, which we're going to talk about later. Being available, I think, at around that price point.
Yeah, Xhaka's a good differential as well, only in 4% of teams, and he's been getting forward so much more than we've ever seen Xhaka. And I think even like, you know, a lot of FPL managers, including me, I don't know how many you've got, but I've got 3 Arsenal players in my team.
I've got...
I'm not too happy about having 3 Arsenal players in my team ahead of them coming to Stamford Bridge, to be honest. So...
Score prediction?
I have to go with I can't go against Chelsea. So I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea.
I think it will be 3-1 Arsenal.
That's probably more realistic, but never mind. Right, there is another big game then, Joe. Also on Sunday, shall we talk Spurs against Liverpool?
Yeah, so let's have a look at this Tottenham Hotspur lineup or potential lineup because huge news, of course, midweek. Son coming off with that eye injury against Marseille. He's had to have surgery on that. He's a doubt for the World Cup now.
So many players are a doubt for the World Cup.
And that means as well that they don't have Son, Kulusevski or Richarlison in the front 3. Harry Kane playing the lonesome role. And we know how important they are counter-attacking in transition to Antonio Conte's team. I wonder whether we'll see Perisic being played in a forward position this weekend.
They don't have anyone else. So
very few other
do you know
options.
what I mean? I think they are genuinely going to have to play. And Perisic, I think, would be, you know, he's good in a front 3, but he's nowhere near as good as Son, Kulusevski and Richarlison. And we all know now how Spurs play under Antonio Conte. And I just would not be opting for any Spurs assets. Like if I had Kane, I'd be getting him out. And although I took him out a while back, but I know his returns are good. Obviously, he blanked, got 1 point, but it is 2 blanks in 3. Obviously, when you look back, he's obviously been returning. But I watched that Marseille performance, and oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They were, and had Marseille's finishing been better, that game would have been over by half time. They were lucky they were still in it, and that Marseille were pushing all the way.
And that Kolasinac got a 50p head. But equally, there was the same against Bournemouth. I mean, they can't keep starting the game 2-0 down. And they especially can't do that against Liverpool, who I know have been very hit and miss themselves, and we're going to talk about some of their assets. But Tottenham have got a really poor record this season against the better teams. And it's going to be quite attritional football, I think, on the weekend. I expect fully to see a back 5 and then 3 defensive midfielders in front of it.
This is what I mean. You know exactly how Spurs are going to play. And from a fantasy perspective, they haven't even got those players now that can hit them on the counter.
I'm still keeping Kane, though. I'm still keeping Kane.
Spurs obviously rely heavily on Kane, but also they rely heavily on the 2 players that surround Kane. Kane doesn't do everything himself. I know sometimes he drops deep, but a lot of the time their attacks will involve those 3 players. Now, they haven't got 2 of those. Well, they haven't got the 3 options they have to play behind Kane. They don't have.
Yeah.
So you know exactly how Spurs are going to play. They're going to sit back, like you say, with a back 5, 2 or 3 centre mids in front of them and try and hit them on the counter. But I can't even see that working.
No, it's going to be tough. Let us know which Tottenham assets you're going to be playing in your team.
And also, are you going to be keeping Kane? Like, if you've got Kane in your team, now that KDB is looking so important, with Haaland especially being out, what are you going to be doing with Harry Kane and your Spurs assets? Make sure you let us know.
Let's have a look at the Liverpool team then, because again a good week in the Champions League for them, beating Napoli 2-0, but a slightly scratchy performance. Napoli having that very, very tight offside goal chalked off, and at the weekend a terrible performance against Leeds and a terrible result against Leeds.
I just it's really weird with Liverpool because every time they get a good result in Europe, they then go back to being the same inconsistent team in the Premier League. So you really don't know what you're going to get. I mean, Salah's obviously selection is rising and people are jumping on that bandwagon, but I'm genuinely thinking about pulling that back, and I just think KDB is way more appealing right now.
I agree.
And still for 12.8 million, that's a lot of money to be tied up in someone that's not guaranteed.
What about this man? We've talked about him over the last couple of weeks, Darwin, who still looks dangerous and again scored midweek, but against Leeds, missed a good chance, didn't he? To be fair, Melier came out well. It was a good save, but I'm always tempted. I just feel like the price is just slightly too high at nearly 9 mil.
Yeah, I would probably agree. But if you want a Liverpool asset, I mean, if you go on fixtures, what are there? Because we've only got 2 fixtures now before the World Cup, which sounds mental. Tottenham away, that Southampton at home fixture does look appealing, and that's where you'd probably want someone like Mo Salah in your team. But even again, when you'd have looked at that Leeds at home fixture, you would have said the exact same thing. So maybe it's best to go on form over fixtures with your Liverpool assets. However, if you wanted to get someone in, I would not be going for Mo Salah. I would be going for Darwin. I think if you want an attacker, given their injuries in those forward positions, I would be taking a risk on Darwin because it's slightly less of a risk than taking a risk on Salah, who's 12.8 million.
Yeah, it's a tough fixture as well away at Tottenham. Score prediction?
It's a boring 0-0 or 1-1 draw.
I'm going to give 2-0 Liverpool, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to go for 2-0 Liverpool. I think they're going to turn up in a big game.
Interesting. Let us know what you're going to do with your Liverpool assets, what you're going to do with Salah, and let us know the score as well. So moving on then, we're going to do a chat on the forward position because this is a position that last season there wasn't really many options, but this season it feels like there's so many options in that mid-range price bracket. One of them, Joe, we spoke about him a little bit earlier, is Callum Wilson.
Yeah.
19 points in the last game week, but looking so good. And you've got him, and I'm actually quite jealous that you've got him.
Yeah, I've had him for quite a while now, to be fair.
You're stuck with him.
I've stuck with him, and I think there's a really good chance he goes to the World Cup, so he's going to be extremely confident, I think, after being included, or likely included in that 55-man squad anyway for Gareth Southgate's long list. I think that's going to give him a little bit of a boost. And he's just so clinical in front of goal. Newcastle creating loads of chances. I just think right now, Mitrovic...
Got City away.
Struggling a little bit, City away, and then United as well, so tough fixtures. That's Gabriel easy. Jesus, not the biggest point scorer despite playing so well. Tony's obviously going to be suspended this coming weekend. Haaland obviously still has that potential ligament damage. We're shooting this on Thursday, so we don't know what Pep has said in his press conference about him being fit or not. So I think in terms of available options, nobody comes close to Wilson right now.
And it is frustrating because a lot of people have got Trippier and Pope. Me and you included.
Yeah.
You've got Wilson. I'm thinking of going Almiron, but there's a case for Wilson or Almiron. You'd be lucky, I think, if you could fit both of them in your team because Newcastle assets are so appealing right now. And even with Wilson, I look at those fixtures, Southampton away, I'm actually going to be at that game, so I'm really excited to see Newcastle actually in the flesh. But also, Chelsea at home.
Fine. Ship 4 against Brighton.
Completely fine.
Yeah.
Especially if Chelsea play the way they've been playing the last few games.
Totally.
Newcastle and Callum Wilson and Miguel Almiron are going to have a field day.
Yeah, we saw how Brighton pressed that Chelsea backline and caused problems for them. Newcastle are the best pressing team in the league, win the ball up really high up the pitch. Callum Wilson takes advantage of that regularly, and with no Kepa, with no Chilwell, with no Reece James, I think the Chelsea backline is vulnerable. So I think the next 2 fixtures are really strong for Wilson, and at 7.5 million with only 10% ownership, I think he's value.
If you had to pick between Almiron or Wilson, obviously Wilson's on pens, and that's obviously makes him slightly more appealing. But also, he's nearly 2 million cheaper, Almiron.
I know. If Almiron allows you to go to KDB, then I think it's a really good option to get Almiron. But if you're not thinking about getting KDB, or you can't get KDB, maybe you've got stacked players in other positions. I just think that Wilson is just the best striking option available, because Mitrovic feels like he's, I don't know, not quite. Last couple of game weeks has looked maybe a little bit lucky not to be sent off against Everton as well.
Yeah, I did see that when you look there. But then again, 3 returns in a row, obviously blanked against Everton, and obviously Man City away. But Man United at home, they've looked threatening in every, do you know what I mean? They have looked threatening in most games, regardless of who they play. I don't expect them to get any returns against City, to be honest. But I've got
United's defence has been good, though.
It has.
United's defence recently, I think they haven't conceded at Old Trafford in 8 hours now, and on the road it's been pretty solid as well. So I don't know what's happened in the Europa League tonight, but...
Yeah. Interesting. Let us know what you're going to do with Mitrovic. Those of you that have Tony, I'm assuming you're probably going to go straight swap from Tony to Wilson, which would be a pretty good move.
Annoyingly, 0.1 difference. So some people might not have the budget, but if you do, I think it's just a tap in.
Yeah, let us know what you're going to do with your striker options. And if you fancy Almiron or Wilson, let us know.
All right, yeah, let's talk captains, because at the time of recording, we haven't heard Pep's talking or statements or press conferences about Haaland's injury, so... Even
if this was recorded after, we would still be sat here saying the exact same thing, because there's no way Pep's coming out and going, yes, Erling Haaland is going to play against Fulham. He will be like, oh, it's an elite fitness test, is what they always say. However, we sat here last week and said your vice captain is more important than ever.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same this week, because I am putting the captaincy on Erling Haaland.
Are you?
Because I don't want to risk him playing, even if he comes on for half an hour. There's a chance that he scores 2. Do you know what I mean? Against Fulham at home. So I'm going to put the captaincy on Haaland, but the thing is, if I then go Salah to De Bruyne is such a good option because he's 100% going to start.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I probably will go vice-captain Wilson this week. Just stick with my gut. I know they're away at Southampton, but I still think that's a pretty favourable fixture for them. So I'm going to go probably leave it on Haaland, unless, of course, Pep does say he's out, then I'll give it to Wilson.
What are the chances of you not vice-captaining Wilson and
about
putting on someone else?
65%.
But yeah, we assume, guys, most of you are going to be captaining Erling Haaland. But if you're not, tell us who you're going to captain and then who you're going to vice-captain as well. But I'm going Haaland.
Yeah.
Are you going Haaland?
Probably, unless something changed in the press conference. And also, remember, it is a later deadline this week. It's a 1:30 deadline because there's no 12 o'clock kickoff.
You've got more time to make your decisions.
And you've got more time to potentially hear the news about Haaland.
I just don't think
if it does come out. The last week it was leaked, wasn't it? It was leaked like quite a few hours before.
Yeah, but that was because... I suppose, do they kick off at 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Oh, so there is a chance that the team news does get leaked. So there is a chance, but we would love to know who you're going to captain. Good luck for this game week. Let us know how you get on, and we'll see you next week.